Welcome to the Munro Review, where it's all about connecting, sharing, and valuing the arts in the central San Joaquin Valley. I'm Donald Munro. Tonight's episode comes to you from Fresno State, where we're in the theater lobby, and we're going to be talking with some interesting folks, including the director and some of the cast of Antigone, which is the Fresno State Theater production. We're also going to be talking to Kalia Flowers, who has written an original musical for Selma Arts Center, and we'll be checking in with Mr. Measure P, Doug Hoagland, to talk about the new round of grants coming up. So let's get started.
We come out of the dark.
Fresno State's new play is Antigone, a Greek classic, and we are here with one of the actors, Marze Ashford.
Hi.
Thank you so much for taking time out of rehearsal to talk with us.
Thank you for having me.
So first of all, Greek drama, that can be a tough sell for audience members. Can you tell us a little bit about the show, about the plot, and why should people come and see it?
It's a little bit about the story. The main theme of the story is justice versus law. So we have our two main characters, well, the two big main characters, Antigone and Creon. And Antigone is fighting for the justice of her brother to be buried correctly and the world to see what justice really needs to be about. And then you have Creon, who made the law of her brother not being able to be buried. And he's very firm on standing against that law, and doesn't see the reasons why Antigone kind of wants to go against the law, and why everyone in the town is kind of, backing her up.
Now, you play Antigone's sister.
I do,
Tell
yes.
us a little bit about, is it Ismay?
Ismene, yes.
What kind of person is she?
She is an emotional person. She's in the middle of fighting for law because she's very much of a rule follower. She doesn't want to go against any type of law, doesn't want to go against any type of thing, yet she sees her sister a full-on rule breaker, and she's trying to tell her, let's just be rule followers. Let's just stay where we're put. And it's kind of hard for her at the beginning of the show, but she comes around at the end to, give a little bit more insight of different things. What
is one thing that you have learned from Sophocles, from the ancient Greeks?
Good characters. Not every character is a good character. Not every character is a bad character. For instance, Creon, he is making bad decisions, but at the end he comes around. He notices his bad decisions. He knows what is right and what is wrong. So I love that about Sophocles and about Antigone, because you don't know which side to take, especially when it comes towards the end.
Oh, polluted, oh, dastard nature, oh, subject to a woman.
But not subject to injustice.
All thy words plead for her.
For you and for me and the gods below.
Thou canst never marry her this side the grave.
Then she'll die and take another with her.
So we're here with two of the people behind the scenes of Antigone. And of course, behind the scenes is really important in terms of making a production, really pop. So welcome. I'll let you introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Georgie. I'm the sound designer for the production.
My name is Mike Oldham. I'm the combat coordinator for this production.
So Antigone, of course, is a very old play. It's one of the oldest plays. But this production is more of a modern feel, more modern dress, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
What were you, as the sound designer, going for in terms of, say, the ambiance or the atmosphere of the show?
I really tried to capture the modern war, the modern feeling of an oppressed world, a brutalist world, and there's a lot of mixes of synth as well as sound effects that we would commonly hear in modern instruments, things like that. Yeah.
So you mentioned modern weapons, and Mike, I know that as the fight coordinator, you have to figure out how to make all those weapons effective. You don't use obviously real guns.
No.
But
the primary concern always, whenever you're dealing with stage combat or any kind of weaponry in theater, is safety. Everything has to be safe. These weapons and knives, guns, etc., are all fake. They're all fake, but they look very, very close to the real thing. So it's really my job to work with the actors to make sure that they're handling the weapons correctly, that they're using them in a way that's not going to harm each other, and also is going to facilitate the story. You know, make sure that the story is told, and make sure that everything goes according to plan.
So do you consider what you do as choreography?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. They should not be going off script. They should not
Okay.
be improvising while they're up there. You know, I typically spend a good 2-3 rehearsals building every fight, you know, and making sure that everything is done the right way. And then I've got a great fight captain, Mason. He's one of the chorus members, and he's been running the fight call for me, and just making sure that he drills into the actors' heads, you know, exactly how to do it every single time, because I can't be here every night. You know, that's what the fight captain's for.
Mhm. In terms of just the themes of Antigone, as you were thinking of this accompanying sound, what was going through your head? What themes were you kind of trying to convey?
I really wanted to capture the characters and who they were as people and their journeys as the story gets told. Every character has its own sound, and they do change as the story goes on. Yeah.
So, Mike, is this Antigone, is it particularly bloody?
No.
Okay.
No.
So the violence is conveyed more through
Correct.
action and
You know, when
dialogue.
when Michelle first contacted me and she said, "Hey, I need a combat coordinator for Antigone," I said, "Well, Antigone, that's a Greek play. Greek play, all the violence happens off stage, you know." So, but it has been updated. There is some violence, and you know, more than just what you would typically expect for violence. You know, stabbings, whatever, all that stuff. It's also general movement interaction between two actors, you know, a shove, a push, stuff like that. That all needs to be worked out as well, because that can go really horribly wrong on stage if the actors aren't prepared for that.
It sounds like it'll be nice to view this type of production in the smaller theater. So we're in the Woods Theater with really close proximity to the actors. Does it make a difference to you, the venue, in terms of how you're going to design the sound?
Oh yeah, having the smaller venue, I could make it so much more atmospheric, which it is. I have many subwoofers in there that shake up the place. Yeah, it's really wonderful. I love
So
the
it's a
smaller
little
venue.
like those premium seats you can buy at the movie theater.
Yeah, the 4X.
That rumble you around. And Mike, just to finish off, what do you think the value is in terms of bringing this really, really old play, back to our modern times?
I mean, Sophocles was a genius for a reason. You know, there's a reason these plays stick around, is because universal themes, right? Everybody can identify with the themes of the Sophoclean trilogy all the way through. You know, and I think it's important that people remember those themes and see that, and then, you know, that's the beauty of theater, is you see something and then you can kind of reflect on your own personal experience and what's happening around you.
We are here now with Michelle Bellaver, who is the director of Antigone. And I have to say, congratulations, your first Fresno State show.
Thank you.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Do they have like a special ritual for you, like the sailors that cross the equator? And
There was no special ritual, although when I first got here, all the women of the department took me out to lunch, which I thought was really an extraordinary gesture. Yeah.
Sometimes when people get hired into a role like this, they are told, okay, you're part of the season and you're going to be directing a show. But in this case, you got to pick Antigone. What are some thoughts behind that decision?
Well, I'd had my eye on the script for about 5 years. And I think as a director, you always want to go with your first sort of intuitive impulse when you're reading scripts. And for myself, it's very image-based. So if I can already start to see the imagery of the piece while I'm reading it, that's always a good sign. And I've always been very interested in Anne Carson's work. She's the translator. She's one of our greatest living poets. She's considered, one of the great experts in translating Greek, right? So not adaptations, but an actual translation from the original Greek. And I found that really exciting. I thought the script was incredibly exciting because it really has a very feminist and modern language, the way she translates. And I love the fact that it was basically a long poem without any punctuation, with no stage directions. I mean, there's nothing there except poetry. So it gave me a really great challenge to look at a play, at a script, and let my imagination run wild. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a wonderful opportunity for a director to really be able to shape the material. Could you talk just a little about the Greek chorus and what its role is? And I think there are some misconceptions about what the chorus is, what it represents, what its function.
Well, the Greek chorus, if we go all the way back to its original idea, is it's meant to be instructive, right? It's meant to be reflective. So it's meant to reflect the audience. It's meant to be the voice of the audience or speak directly to the audience. And it's meant to be instructive, which the plays were as well. It's this idea of how do you disseminate democracy, right? And the theaters in ancient Greece, Epidaurus had 14,000 seats, right? It's like the size of a football stadium, right? People going to learn, how do we deal with life? How do we learn what it means to be human? How do we fight against tyranny? How do we make sure that we how do we create a democracy? So the chorus was meant to really reflect those ideals and be instructive and help guide the audience to understand. And now the chorus also traditionally used to sing their lines, and they would work and move in unison. So they were considered like a single unit. And this play, I've sort of broken that up a bit. The chorus sections are always written as, it just says chorus with all the lines. But I've been breaking it. I broke it down into 5 distinct roles of chorus members. And the idea of the play is that it's set in a future now. Is it the past? Is it the future? Is it today? And so there's elements of it that feel very contemporary. And the chorus in particular is an army unit. So if this is a play that's happened just after a war, we start on a battlefield, and the chorus is an army unit. And with their distinct personalities of how they start to realize and feel about what Creon is doing. So there's these people who really, at the beginning, they all really support him. They fought the war for him. And then how do these all individually start to react till we come to the end when they've all walked away from him? We'll see if it works, right?
The theme of justice, the themes of justice and the law.
Yeah.
It's hard to do anything these days without thinking deeper thoughts about them.
Sure.
Just in terms of political situation, in terms of what this country's going through.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? What does Sophocles have to say, do you think, about the importance of the rule of law, and when is it okay to bend that rule?
Well, I think what Sophocles is helping us understand and pulling our attention to is that the rule of law does not necessarily mean that it's just. And the rule of man sometimes does not mean that justice is served. And that there is a law of nature of what it means to be a human being and how we treat each other. And he really wanted to pull our attention to tyranny. A single rule by a single person cannot exist in a healthy, thriving democracy. I think he's really bringing our focus to that. I find it really interesting that he titled it Antigone when Creon is the one on stage most of the time, right? And I think that is a clue. I think he's bringing our attention to her, and he wants us to listen to her voice, and he wants to bring our attention to women and the role of civil disobedience in the midst of tyranny. I think it's really important.
Mm-hmm. So you consider this to be a very strong woman's play?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Greeks are really interesting in that way. I consider myself an astute feminist and a scholar and academic, but also a creative artist. And I keep pulling myself back to the Greeks for that very reason. I think that they really want us to look at how women were being treated during that time. And a play continues to be done for 2,500 years. It's probably saying something to us that we keep needing to hear, right? And Antigone is such a famous piece for that very reason, I think.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, and maybe to emphasize to folks, is that just because it's a 2,500-year play doesn't mean it's dry or dusty or boring.
Yeah.
I know that other times I've seen Antigone, it's a story that just kind of grabs you.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're right. I think that it's maybe one of the reasons why I wanted to do the interpretation of it with the sort of creative vision that we are, how we have decided to present this play. You know, there's no togas, right? There's no Greek dress. It's, it's army unit and army military gear with Uzis and AK-47s on stage, right? So it's a very contemporary take on it. It's definitely not a museum piece that we're presenting tonight, right? And I think that audiences, I think of any persuasion, of any thought around the rights of democracy are really going to enjoy this interpretation. Absolutely.
Thank you, Michelle,
Thank
for being
you.
with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great.
God forbid your brain works differently, because they'll come and tell you you messed up. I learned to be quiet, settle down, cover up, and stuff it way, way, way down. Well, they say, ooh, she's so dysfunctional.
There is nothing more exciting than a new musical. And I am excited to tell you about a new musical, which is very rare in these parts. I can't even remember. This is Kalia Flowers. You have written a new musical for Selma Arts Center. That in itself is like big news right there.
Yeah.
Tell us about Dysfunction.
Wow. What do you want to know? Ooh.
Well, I guess first of all, how did it all start?
Wow. Yeah. So Dysfunction, to be truthful, Dysfunction's original concept was actually conceived when I was very young. I was about 15 years old. And it wasn't called Dysfunction, though. It was called Strong. And it was this other musical entirely. But I had this idea, and I really wanted to write a musical theater. And all the art forms in general were very it was like an escape for me at that time. So it was very much like in my inner world, like doing all the things. And so that's kind of where it started. And then obviously you grow up and you depart from ideas that you had. And so I had my second born son, who's 3 now. And I had reconnected with Claudio, who's also my friend from high school. And, we were just chatting or whatever. And the idea was put in my head to submit something for the Selma Originals. And I had been wanting to do it a few times, but then the pandemic came and, made things a little challenging. So I was like, okay, if I was going to do something, what would I do? And so I'm looking through old songs and I'm like, okay. So I took this idea that I already had for a few songs and then thought, okay, what if we did a mini song cycle? Because the parameters for the originals was that you could only have 8 people in your cast and the show couldn't be longer than 20 minutes.
And just the originals is like a showcase of new work.
Yeah, it's a really amazing opportunity at the Selma Arts Center, produced by Claudio, who, and basically it's just an opportunity to showcase your work. And it's just this much of it, but it's a chance to get your work on stage and kind of also see how you do as a budding director or a choreographer or things like that, right? It's an opportunity for you to try something out in a smaller sort of condensed fashion. That's more of not really a fundraiser, but just an opportunity to get people into the Arts Center. And so it was really cool that my piece was chosen. But so I guess in that process, I was like, okay, let me find a way to make a 20-minute musical. And so I was like, the easiest way I could think of to do it was to take snippets of songs that I'd already written and kind of smash them together. And due to my own upbringing and my life experiences, a lot of those songs were centered around this theme of like, this is a lot of emotions all over the place. And so my thought was, okay, we'll make it a song cycle and we'll call it Dysfunction. And that was the first, and it makes me laugh because I'm like, wow, that was the first time when I was like, oh, we're gonna call it Dysfunction, a song cycle. And so there were 8 songs, or there were 11 songs technically, but like 8 true songs. And the whole thing was 20 minutes. Each song was like 45 seconds to a minute long. And Claudio and I had co-directed the project for that iteration together. And yeah, that was the start. And it was, again, this big, very small.
And so now it's grown. Now it's
grown.
actually a musical.
Absolutely. Yeah.
90 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
How big is your cast?
Oh gosh, my cast. We have a cast of about, I want to say 25 friends. So it's a pretty large cast for the stage, but it's awesome.
And are the numbers, are they all solos? Are they're duets? Do you have any big ensemble numbers?
Oh yeah, there's big ensemble numbers. It's very much an eclectic show, so it's not just songs all the way through. I didn't get to say it before, but what was once a 20-minute song cycle has now become just a musical. And I like to compare it to like 35 millimeter Meets Hair. So there's very much anecdotal moments happening, right? You get to peer into someone's life and their experiences with dysfunctional behavior and dysfunctional relationships with the world around them. So there are duets, there are trios, there are lots of solos, lots of big group numbers. There's poetry, there's rap, there's dance, movement. It is very much it's really cool.
Oftentimes, a new musical on Broadway, say, goes through this very torturous process where they workshop it,
Mm-hmm.
they throw songs out. They're pretty cutthroat about it. Did you go through a similar process?
I mean, I would say it's less cutthroat because the stakes aren't as high, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're in New York City and you're like, you want your thing to make it and everyone's talking about, oh, is your thing gonna make it? Or this person's doing a thing over here and that person, and you're in that realm. And this feels a little bit more like Big Fish, Little Pond. So it's like, the thing is cool for where we're at. And so it gets attention, and it hasn't been scrutinized very much, but that's sure to happen. But I've been very cutthroat with my own piece, right? And it is still in a developmental workshopping process. And technically this iteration of it at the Selma Arts Center is a workshop, right? And so, yeah, this process has been killer from start to now. From when we auditioned everybody at the end of January to right now, we haven't cut any songs since we started production, but the whole writing process has just been me being like, no, or like, oh, bring that back, actually, just kidding, And so, yeah.
Did you write any songs for a particular voice or a particular person?
We started with a cast of 8 friends, and so my hope when I was writing some of these songs was that some of those friends would return. And so there were some songs that I wrote. I didn't write anything specifically for people, but I was like, ooh, if you were to audition, this would be a cute one. You should audition. You know what I mean? So a lot of that was happening. And then obviously there's people in the community who I love and admire. And so my hope still is that, like, as it goes on, like, I'm hoping I can get like all those special peeps from the community to be a part of this project, because there are a few names that I could hear singing the songs.
Can you talk just a little bit more about maybe the overarching theme? I mean, what does your show have to say about dysfunction? I know that dysfunction is pretty much a human universal.
Yeah.
So is it about coping? Is it about embracing? What?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
So dysfunction, I'm going to do the little tagline right now, but dysfunction is about trauma and how we move forward after the things that happen to us, right? And so I think that we live in a world where we have social media and we have these expectations put on us that we have to be like you're going to be considered a strong person if you don't let it show that anything is wrong. And that is backwards, right? And like the true strength is in the vulnerability. The true strength is in how soft you are and being honest about the things you've been through in your life and like forging your way forward and finding community with other people. And that's the show, right? It's about like, when you hear dysfunctional, like in order for something to be dysfunctional, something has to be functional, right? So those of us who identify with this word dysfunction think that they are alone and that they are not normal, and it's normal, you know? So I guess that's a broad way of talking about what it is, but you'd really have to just come and see it.
Okay.
Check it out.
So let's do a little bit of role play here. So
okay.
I am a person who likes musical theater, but I only like to go to shows that have already been on Broadway and that
That's
are,
real.
you know, Sound of Music. I would go see Sound of Music every year.
Yeah.
What do you say to me to convince me to go see something new?
If I was being ambitious and like a little egotistical, I would say it's not a smash hit yet, but it will be.
Okay.
And you should come see it so that you can be a part of this process now before it blows up. That's
I
what
think
would
that's
say.
actually a really good tactic because also people do like to be in on the ground floor.
Yeah, and that was the way that I could get people to audition. I was like, doesn't it sound awesome to be a part of this new work? Your name's in the script. Is it the original cast? You know what I mean? That's pretty cool.
You know, there is
I
nothing
love-
like going to a show when it's completely unknown. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, and I think it's scary, right? Like even asking people to come audition for it, and it's not something you can look up.
You
They're like,
never
what am I
and you never
auditioning
know.
for?
You never know.
Yeah.
I remember years and many years ago,
Mhm.
I got a chance to see Wicked. I remember I took my mom, San Francisco, first tryout
Wow.
before it went to Broadway.
That's really amazing.
And there was, you know,
That
I knew there was
raw,
something
like,
special there.
yeah.
But I've also been to shows that I've actually really loved
Mhm.
that didn't go
yeah,
on.
and that's
But there's
that's
still
life,
something really special about being there on that ground floor,
Mhm.
being one of the first people to see it. to hear it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And you should come see it, Donald Munro.
Absolutely,
I think,
absolutely.
yeah, I'd love to see you out there.
Well, before I let you go, what do we need to know about this production? When does it play? When
Yes.
can people see it?
Yeah, so this iteration of Dysfunction, a new musical, I'm getting used to the new name, is going to be on stage April 10th through the 19th at the Selma Arts Center. You can get tickets at selmaartscenter.com. They're live right now.
Well, great. Like I say, exciting stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Now it's time to talk about our favorite subject, Measure P. And we're here with Mr. Measure P, Doug Hoagland, who has written about Fresno's wonderful sales tax. It's also an infuriating tax, or it's been an infuriating process at times because it's taken forever to get it going underway. So Doug, first of all, why don't you explain what Measure P is, just for if people don't know?
Sure. So in 2018, Fresno voters approved Measure P, which is a 30-year sales tax increase. It raises millions of dollars every year. 88% of the money goes to parks. Fresno is in desperate need of new parks. 12% goes to arts and culture. And what I've been writing about is the arts and culture component.
Now, we had a lot of money that was given away last year.
Yes.
And how much was?
It was
given away?
$9.4 million. They had some money accrue as they put the grants program together. This year, they expect to distribute $6.2 million.
Are we at that point where it's a regular thing, like we're in a regular cycle, or is this second round of grants starting late?
No, it is starting late. The Fresno Arts Council went to the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission, which was established by Measure P to kind of guide the process. The Arts Council went to the PRAC, as it's known, in September, trying to get a head start. They wanted to begin accepting applications in November. It's now March, and that process has now been kicked off.
And I know that some organizations, because of the way their fiscal year is set up, they need to know this stuff.
Yes.
And so I know that in the arts community, there has been some confusion about that and wishing that things could get underway more quickly. So now we're finally here. There are deadlines to actually apply for the second round. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, what's new this year is what they're calling a letter of intent, but it's really an online form where you submit information about if you're a nonprofit organization, you need to make sure that you have state certified 501c3 status. If you're an individual artist seeking a grant, you have to have a fiscal sponsor. You have to make sure that you include in your letter of intent that that fiscal sponsor is a certified 501c3. That period opened on March 14th. Those letters of intent are due at 11:59 p.m. on Friday, April 4th. Only if your letter of intent is approved can you ever submit an application.
I know there were some kinks the first year, and those are to be expected. What are some of the rules of Measure P that the Arts Council is pushing for the second round?
Sure. Your performances, if you're a performance-based grant recipient, your rehearsals, your performances have to be in the city of Fresno. If you're doing art therapy, and there were some art therapists who received money last year, you have to show that you're a certified art therapist. That's an actual designation, a certification. You have to show that that you have that. As they said at a meeting I went to this week, all art is therapeutic, but if you're saying it's art therapy, you've got to have that certification.
There's also been discussion in the community and discussion on the PRAC about geography.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that? Were there any decisions made about trying to divide awards up, say, by council district?
No, there was no decision about that. There was a lot of discussion and, frankly, controversy that delayed the program last year. Concern expressed by one of the commissioners that neighborhoods in Southeast, Southwest, and South Central Fresno weren't getting their fair share of Measure P. They did include maybe a philosophical statement in the guidelines this year that says the awards will be given to reflect the diversity, the demographic, neighborhood diversity of the city, but there's nothing firm that says each council district has to get X amount of money.
What about accountability for grant money that was given in the first year? Do you know, are there any evaluations done? Do they check to make sure that the money was spent the way it was supposed to be spent?
Well, I believe there are quarterly reports that grant recipients have to be filing with the Fresno Arts Council. And at the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, I'm thinking that there will be an accounting of, did you spend the money the way you said you were going to? And I'll certainly be checking on that.
Okay. I know that last year there was talk that there's going to be even more people, more organizations applying. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think about that? What have you heard, or what's your feeling? Do you think there's going to be more competition for funding this year?
Well, that's what folks at the Fresno Arts Council have said. Last year, they received 137 applications. They awarded grants to 112 recipients. I'm not sure. I think it's going to be very interesting on April 4th or April 5th to find out how many people passed the letter of intent process, because that really is a winnowing out process. If the Fresno Arts Council doesn't pass your letter of intent, you can't apply for a grant. So that'll give us some indication.
And before I forget, I wanted to ask you about the amounts that people can apply for organizations. Were there changes?
You're testing me here, Donald.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I can talk a little bit about that. I mean, it gets
complex. Pretty technical.
It does. So if you're an established art organization, such as the Fresno Philharmonic or the Fresno Art Museum, last year they could apply for both project grants and what they call general operating support, pay their rent, pay their utilities. This year, those organizations can only apply for one. They have to choose. There was some, I don't know, I'm saying debate, but as the guidelines move through the process, the amount of money that an established organization can apply for or receive, really, is $400,000. But there are different thresholds for different organizations. You have emerging organizations, you have established organizations. It's best for people to go to the guidelines at the Fresno Arts Council to get all the specifics.
To check that out.
Yes.
Yeah. And I guess an important thing to remember too is there just is going to be less money to give away this year.
Right. So if you go with the idea that there will be greater number of applicants, you have less amount of money, right, that will make the decision making interesting.
Well, is there anything else that you want to tell us about Measure P?
I guess the only other thing I'd say is that, I've been very process oriented, looking at how it is getting off the ground, and I think that's important reporting. I think it's important for people to, maybe take a couple steps back and know that this is bringing a more vibrant arts community to Fresno, something that people wanted for many, many years. And thanks to the people who voted for Measure P in 2018, we're working our way towards that.
It's easy to get caught up in the, like you say, the process, and there's always going to be disagreements about how money gets given away. But I mean, you're right. It's very forward thinking of Fresno. We've gone from a city that's devoted practically nothing to arts, at least from the government standpoint, to millions of dollars a year.
Yes.
And that's got to make a difference in the long run.
Sure. And the thing that really I think is significant, or one of the most significant things about Measure P, is for 30 years. So it isn't going to be a start and stop process. This really gives organizations a chance to find stability and move forward.
Well, great. Well, as always, thank you for being here, Doug. So that wraps it up for this episode of the Munro Review on CMAC. I want to thank all of our guests. I want to thank our CMAC crew. And I hope that you will take the opportunity this month to go do something artsy. Support a local artist. I think that's really important. So for the rest of CMAC, I'm Donald Munro. Thanks for joining us.